10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
Liftoff, and the clock is starting.
Roger, the clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And using green screen technology, I digitally insert myself into Kerbalcast Episode-16, a game to die for.
There's nothing like having your friend show up with lots of guns.
As Teddy Roosevelt once said, walk softly and always have a lot of leather-clad babes with heavy artillery. I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, and with us as always, our CMP, that's Command Module Pilot
Nostromo.
Coming up in our program today, we have a big deal whiz-bang interview with Max Maps, Miguel Pena from Squad. Also in today's program,
We give you our update on the progress report, our progress in the game.
and DK is back with another Modders Minute.
We also have your letters in the crew report.
And the latest Kerbal news and this week's mission briefing. And this week's But I Digress is actually, but we kind of digress, but not really. It's sort of a digress, but it's related to Kerbal. It's the story of Max Maps. So did I just confuse everybody?
I wouldn't want to use that title twice, but I say we go for it. So,
But I kind of digress somewhat on topic.
yeah, we'll get back to it, but we'll also talk about things that are closed. But
Yeah.
anyway, here's the thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you have to admit that has kind of a ring to it, though.
it has
But I kind of digress, but not really.
it has something to it.
Yeah, it has a certain odor to it, that's for sure.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start it off big. We got to talk with Max Maps. He is the producer at Squad, the makers of Kerbal Space Program.
A.K.A. Miguel Pena. And he told us some information about the upcoming update, 0.25. And we don't want to make you wait. We're going to get right to the good stuff, and here it is.
I would say it's almost as big as 24. Like, we are adding a new system that's going to complement. Well, what we have right now is contracts that give you money, science, and reputation. We have the tech tree for science. We have reputation's kind of like a floating currency right now. But what we feel right now is that there's no real cohesiveness between the three currencies, and there's no interplay between them. And we think that's not particularly cool. Yeah, we think like we can add a lot of depth by letting people modify their playstyle and change how their relationship within those three currencies work. I can't tell you quite exactly what it is, but for anyone wondering who might be wanting to listen to this podcast to get some news that you won't hear anyone else, that is effectively what the admin building is. The admin building includes a whole new series of systems that is designed to make your playstyle way more customizable and to add a lot of interaction between the three currencies.
Okay, that you actually kind of anticipated my question, because I just saw some new artwork of the new admin building, and I was curious if it served a different function. So is that kind of the focus of 0.25?
Yes, it's most of the focus. There's two more systems going in that are going to modify how you play. One of them we're going to talk about next week, and the other one is going to have to wait until QA because, how do I put this? It's something that no mod whatsoever has done to this point. Like, we went through everything we found, and no one has even considered this a possibility within the game, so it has us very excited. It doesn't affect gameplay quite much. Like, it's not a huge change in gameplay. If you play really well, you will never run into it. I'll put it like that.
So, sea monsters?
No. But I'll also say it's that system includes about 90% of the framework necessary for the system we're gonna drop into 26. That is like really, really huge and game changing. It's like as big as contracts at least.
Okay, so does anything, if I remember the image that was released, does it have anything to do with that giant H on top of the building?
The helipad.
No. The helipad is just sort of a tongue-in-cheek thing for us. They kind of stand for land here.
Oh, okay.
Well, listen, I'm going to go out on a limb here because I think I've figured out what you're talking about, and you can confirm or deny if you want. But you guys are adding Rollies to the game, right?
Oh God, Rollies! I would like to hear how exactly that development started, like how that popped into your head, Nos.
I was looking for a way to travel, and I hadn't really gotten the way to build a rover yet. So I wanted to travel Kerbin without actually having to, build anything in career that I didn't have anything to just travel along the ground. So it started with me just rolling a command pod to get off of the to get off of the launch pad to get the soil sample, and then it just, I don't know where it went from there. I wasn't being supervised by anyone, so it kind of went off the rails.
That explains a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I actually had a design for a rover like that where I just put a giant probe core and then 2 of the giant reaction wheels next to it, and then I just spammed lander legs as the spokes of a wheel. And these road, like, if you've seen the war wheels from the Marvel universe,
yeah,
that's kind of what it's like and how it functions.
See, I'm glad to know I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, there you go. So when I heard you talking about rollers, it's like, that kind of sounds like my war wheel.
I can't help but think, though, the developers, the guys that are working on this game, they probably sit there and listen to this and just shake their heads and think,
there's more than enough laughter and entertainment to make up for the every now and then deep facepalm moment.
I'm sure we have quite a few. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about 0.25, or is that the extent of what you can say?
All right, we have the whole new set of spaceplane parts.
Yeah, the integration of Spaceplane Plus.
Yes, and the fact that we had Hugo, our intern, who is now back in school, build a whole bunch of new MK3 parts for space shuttles.
So, actually, on the topic of that, it was the integration of Spaceplane Plus was originally a mod made by just an independent player, right?
Yes, Porkjet. He is a German student of game design.
So you contacted him and asked if you could implement it in the game?
Oh, yes, but we didn't quite go like that. We were looking to do, like, one of the big items on our list for this update was, like, we need new spaceplane parts. The rest of the parts in the game have started to look better and better as time goes by because we are adding the textures, changing the parts, or adding new parts. And the spaceplane parts just kind of lagged behind, not looking really great. And it was sort of like the ugly thing in the corner we weren't paying much attention to, and we finally got around to them. I was like, okay, we can either do them all, or we can find someone who has done them great. And we're like, I don't know. A lot of modders don't get the graphic style of the game. Like, they make some really cool parts, but they don't fully fit into it.
Yeah.
And then someone in chat brought up, like, hey, have you guys taken a look at Spaceplane Plus? And we're like, I think I have. Given a cursory, not that much. And then we looked through it and I was like, you know what? This is pretty much precisely what we want. This is like exactly what we want. It has the graphic style down. It looks really sleek. It's really nice. And I was like, okay, we should definitely contact this guy and we should buy his content because he put a lot of work into it.
See, you work hard and you get rewarded.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? That is the first segment of our interview with Max Maps, and we've got some more segments coming up later in the program. But we wanted to get the update on 0.25 out there first. And now we'll kind of go into our normal progression here, and we'll talk about our update within the game. Let's go ahead and start with you, Nos. What's your progress been like?
I did get some hours in this week, unlike last week.
Well, you were traveling.
Yeah, I didn't have a good excuse for this one.
We didn't hold. So. We're not holding that against you.
So the first thing I tried to do is I tried to Shay put up that challenge, so I was working on that.
And we have another one, by the way.
Yeah, so I was launching.
Also later in the program,
I was launching little houses and trying to land them
on the prairie.
Yeah, people play the little music and stuff.
Yeah, right.
So I was launching those and landing some little houses. I didn't get all 8 before I decided I wanted to work on other things because I didn't have all the parts I wanted to make really cool looking little habitats for them.
Yeah.
So
you know what? That challenge doesn't sound that hard, but it actually is.
Yeah, to land 8. Yeah.
It's actually harder than you think.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Because I was pulling some suborbitals and just kind of guiding the direction of them to. I was pretty sure that's what the challenge was. I could just do a suborbital and land
You could do a what?
A suborbital.
a subliminal.
Yeah, a suborbital, and then land.
Send us money.
And then land the house wherever. So yeah, I made 1 or 2, and they would I'd land them and they'd fall over, and I was like, does that count?
Well, yeah, it's like split level housing.
Yeah. So it's chic. It's it's on the side, and so
it makes it easier to lay down and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Although getting up is difficult.
The next thing I tried to do is I just kind of had a random idea, and I was like, I want to launch something that is right side up when you launch it, but lands upside down.
Oh, did you? When you built the craft, did you build with that component upside down, and then you flip it? Okay.
So like I was completing a lot of contracts.
Does that mess up your building? Because I've done that before, where I flipped things, and then it's like the rest of your build just goes. I have no idea which way I'm supposed to be pointing.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but like I wanted to do it with a probe, so I wanted to launch the probe, and collect the science, and then like come back down, and like whenever it would land,
right.
the probe would actually be on the bottom of the part that was landing. So it was basically the probe, a science junior, and then the legs were pointing up in the build mode.
Right.
Now the problem I ran into is I had to put all this started is because I like launching probes just to do like little science gathering things.
Right.
But I don't like how the parachutes can't fit on the probe thing without looking weird.
Right.
Like because there's the basic parachute that usually just attaches to the top center of whatever you put it on, and then you have the side mount, the radial parachutes, and the only way you can put it on top of the probe core, like you would on a command pod, is to put it on the side, and it looks weird.
Can I point out that I'm the one who's supposed to overcomplicate things?
So
I mean, this is like Rube Goldberg is looking at this going, this is way too complicated.
I just didn't like how it fit and how it looked, so I was like, oh, I'll turn the pod or the probe upside down and put the Science Junior on it, it would land with it upside down.
Right.
So whenever I was building, I did the probe right side up, the Science Junior, and then put the standard parachute on the bottom upside down.
Okay. Was that the probe core? Was that the first thing that you?
Yeah.
Okay. And you turned it upside down?
No. Okay. Whenever I was building it,
because when I've done that, I have to fly everything I have to fly everything retrograde to have my nav ball work out right.
It was right side up the entire time I flew it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so the probe core was right side up. Everything was right side up when I built it. The only thing that was upside down was the parachute.
Right.
And the landing legs.
Right.
So I launch it, and whenever it was coming back in, everything was decoupled, and I would hit the parachute, and it would flip upside down. So the probe head was now at the bottom.
Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out how you. Okay.
Yeah. And so then the landing legs would come down, and they came down just like a little bit farther than the probe did. So whenever you're looking at it, it's basically a Science Junior with landing legs and a probe core at the bottom of it.
I have to give you a lot of credit. That's much less complicated than just flipping it over in flight.
Because whenever I hit,
that's not complicated at all.
Yeah, whenever I hit the parachute, it would just auto flip. I just wanted something that I'd launch right side up.
Because there's no way to make it flip otherwise.
Well, I mean, maybe.
I'm sorry, I'm giving you a bad time. It's just you have given me so much grief over the episodes about these complicated things that I build, and then you're like building like what should be something simple, and you're going, and then I'm going to install this on it.
Yeah, and so like it would be coming in, and it would flip around and land, and it would It was kind of fun, and I was just getting science with it from Space Around Kerbin to satisfy some contracts. So I just wanted to make it a little bit more interesting. The thing that did stink about it is you can't attach anything on top of a parachute. Mm-hmm. So
that kind of negates the purpose.
Yeah, but I couldn't put a decoupler on it.
Oh, okay.
And then put the rest of the rocket. So it's like I had that centerpiece, and I had to just build out from that centerpiece, but I couldn't put anything below it.
Right.
So the only other way is if I had two and they were attached to the side of a main hull of a rocket or something.
How many of these did you land?
I did two.
Two? Okay.
Yeah, so I did one to get science, and then it turns out I didn't go high enough. I thought I did, but I didn't get space around curve, and I just got, I was still like...
So you did 2/8 of the challenge.
Oh, you're talking about the houses?
Yeah.
I did half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I did half, and then I was like, I wanted to fulfill some contracts, because what I was wary of is I didn't want to spend all my money doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And then not be able to build things to, do the stuff I wanted to do.
Right.
Or like the contracts and stuff,
Gotcha.
So I didn't want to spend money without making money. Like, Which
a sound strategy.
Which I'm pretty sure I have plenty of money if I could do a couple like really big failures before I'd have to start worrying about anything. But I just, I was also worried about anytime I would try to like look at Kerbin from the orbital view,
right?
I would see all these little pops, like like all these little markers from like all the little Kerbals I have just like sitting there with their little houses. And, I don't want to be like NSA spying on them. So I just withdrew it.
Well, at least not without a warrant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But that was the fun I was having, is I wanted to build something right side up that lands upside down.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, if you did it with a command pod, I don't know how exactly it would work. I think, like, if you did it like that, the command pod would be hanging upside down, just right above the surface. So I think you could just jump up and grab it. Yeah. Now, this was with no intention of it leaving. So I wouldn't do a MUN landing with it or anything. Okay. It was just land it on some part of Kerbin. So if I was to start campaign over, I may do that just to build fun little rockets to, check out, like the mountains or whatever.
I just had a thought. Given how you are about rollies, if you landed a capsule upside down, I'm surprised that you didn't immediately make spinnies. Like make them into tops. Yeah. Because you've got the thin point is down. Yeah. You could just like spin them.
Yeah, and you could get that girder that narrows it down.
Yeah. Oh, and it would be like Inception, because you just let it spin and we never know if it falls or not.
You just put a nose cone on it. Yeah. Because that rounds out the... Well,
see?
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Spinnies.
I'll see what I could do.
Spinnies. I'm telling you, man, it's the next big thing.
We're like hitting problematic territory in my development. Like, we're going to eventually, it's like, what's your progress? I'm going nowhere destructively fast. Yeah. Like,
I have a feeling you've heard that all your life.
Yeah. So what's your progress been?
Well, okay, I'm going to start out with a number 702. That's total
that's a lot
hours.
Of times to crash.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's total hours in the game.
And you're just breezing through this thing.
That's all I do, man. Eat, sleep, and Kerbal.
All right, what do you have to show for it?
What do I have to show for it? Okay. First of all, I did something that I've never done in the game before this week.
Sandwich time.
Sandwich time. I decided that because what I've done up to this point in the game, I've been to Eve, I've been to Mun, Minus, I've been to Duna, and I've been to the assorted moons around those planets as well. I decided it was time to venture further out, to go where no Biff has gone before. Ooh. And so I decided the next planet out from Duna was Dress. Okay. Yeah. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to shoot for that one. And so I got outside the Kerbin system and I was trying to set up a maneuver node, and I discovered that I was in a perfect position to actually intercept Jewel. And I have never been to anything further out than Duna. Yeah. And Jewel has been one of those that I've always wanted to go to, because that's the game's analog of Jupiter. Uh-huh. And when I realized that I was in a perfect position to go to Jewel without a whole lot of fuel expenditure, I went ahead and did it. And I've currently have a ship in orbit around Jewel. I've been slowly narrowing the orbit itself to where now I am orbiting. I'm trying to think, what's the innermost? Is it Tylo? No, it's Lathe. I'm sorry. Lathe is the innermost moon. It's the moon that's closest to Jewel. Yeah. I am in an orbit that is just slightly above Lathe. And that's where I am currently. What I need to do, and this is where I stopped last night, was I am launching some tankers because I'm going to need some fuel to get back. Yeah. I'm going to need more fuel than I have to get back. But currently I am orbiting just above Lathe. And I've got a good view of Jewel. It's the first time ever in the game, not just this playthrough. It's the first time ever I've been to Jewel, and it's really cool. Yeah. It's a big planet, so that was kind of cool to actually see it. Yeah,
like, hey, there it is.
Yeah, and because it's whereas the real Jupiter is more of the kind of murky reds and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. The Jewel is actually more green. And it has the same kind of striations and the clouds and the whole bit. I mean, it looks like a green Jupiter. And what's neat is when you do the galaxy view, when you do the M key and you can see the big map view, it has so many moons circling around it that when you time accelerate, it's like, honestly, it's like watching bullets zip around, because you've got all these moons just going all over the place. And then there's one, Bop, which they theorize is a captured asteroid, and it's on this really wacky inclined orbit where it actually goes way high above and then goes way below, and it's really cool. I want to visit some of the other moons in that system before I leave. The lathe looks like, from what I can see, it looks like most of the surface is liquid. There are little scattered islands here and there. I'm going to do some reading on it before I actually attempt a landing. But it looks like it's going to be tough to land on, because the target, I'm going to be trying to target some very small islands.
Yeah.
That's going to be tricky. But anyway, that's my progress in the game, is I finally got to Jewel. I should not be this excited.
No, it's on the horizon. That's pretty cool.
I know. It's just
like, I remember the first time I was orbiting the Mun, and I was like, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Being able, and I was taking screenshots like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was going like, there's Jewel. I finally, and this is the dumb part, right? Is I was actually thinking to myself, I'm finally seeing Jewel with my own eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's like, it's a game.
Well,
I'm seeing, that is no more real than a picture of it that I see on a wiki. But the fact that I actually got there.
Yeah, that it's your experience seeing it, which is cool. Because
I know.
I've seen screenshots of the Mun. I've seen people land on the Mun.
Right.
And the only time that ever felt special and cool to me is whenever I did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's cool anytime people do things, like if somebody lands on Lathe or any of those, it's like, hey, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But until you do it, it's like, that's a very neat thing. But whenever you're doing it, you're like, I'm the one doing it.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing it.
Well, that's we have spoken many times about the uniqueness of this game.
Yeah.
And that right there is one of the unique things, is how many games are out there where simply getting to a location is so satisfying.
Yeah.
The fact that, for the first time ever, I'm orbiting Jewel. Name another game that has a comparable experience.
Yeah, and
Like-
it's not like you're trying to find some hidden thing or something like, oh, I made it there.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to make my next goal, once I get the parts that I'm more comfortable with making those big flights, I'm going to try for Minmus. Because most people tell me Minmus is what they go for first, but I was just like, Mun's closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've said this to you before. Minmus is actually easier to land on, but because it's an inclined orbit, it's actually harder to get to for a beginner. Because you, unlike the Mun, which is in the same orbital plane, with Minmus, you can get there the same way.
Yeah.
But you also have to correct your orbital plane, unless you manage to get it where it intersects the Kerbin plane. But there's, obviously there's only 2 points that it does that.
Yeah.
And, so you've got to be fairly precise. One other thing that I wanted to mention. We did last week our first ever Modders Minute. DK from the Twitch TV channel Declarations. He talked about enhanced navball. I immediately installed enhanced navball.
Nice.
And okay, number one, why I never installed this before, I have no idea.
Yeah,
because it is so helpful.
It looks like it's really cool.
It's very helpful. Yeah, it makes it. He talked about, when you set a maneuver node, you have to spin around and try and find it. This one, you know where everything is.
Yeah.
You know where your retrograde is. You know where your prograde is. You know where your inclinations are, declinations. I mean, you know everything. It's extremely helpful. And to follow up on something I talked about a couple of podcasts ago, do you remember I made the comment that I have been trying unsuccessfully for quite some time to install Roster Prop Monitor? I finally did it. I could not believe it. There were so many times when I thought I had installed it and I didn't.
Yeah.
I tried it again, and now one of two things have happened. Either A, I've gotten better at installing mods, or B, they've done a revision to it for 0.24.
Oh, okay.
Where it is easier to install. But now I have Roster Prop Monitor.
Nice.
So anyway,
whatever gets you there.
Talking about mods, that leads us into our next thing.
It's Modder's Minute from DK from Twitch TV channel Declarations.
And with our second edition of Modder's Minute, here is yet another mod that I feel has features that should absolutely be included in the game. This mod is Kerbal Alarm Clock. Kerbal Alarm Clock fixes this by slowing down our time warp for us and then notifying us when we are a certain period of time away from, say, our maneuver node. It defaults to 1 minute, but it can be changed to whatever you might need it to be. In addition to setting alarms for maneuver nodes, you can also set alarms for the other flight path nodes, apoapsis, periapsis, ascending node, and descending node. You can set a launch rendezvous alarm for when your craft passes under the orbit of a target while it's on the surface of the body the target is orbiting. Alarms for when your ship changes from one sphere of influence to another. Alarms for when you are coming in for rendezvous and looking for your closest approach. You can create an alarm for when you are a certain distance from your target, which can be helpful for some of those new contracts. And the most important one to me, transfer alarms for when your interplanetary phase angles line up and you're ready to head to another planet. So what I'm saying is this mod has alarms. And with all of these alarms, if you are currently controlling another ship when they go off, you can jump right to the ship with the alarm. This mod is one that vanilla players would absolutely love to have. It's another mod that only helps the vanilla game experience.
And that was DK with his Modder's Minute.
Before we get to our next thing, I did want to mention DK has put up his first tutorial video on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I strongly recommend this. It is short. It is to the point. It's not so technical that it would be over a beginner's head. It has got animations. It's got on-screen text, arrows. This is, when I was a beginner, this is exactly what I would have been looking for. And what you want to do, go to YouTube and search for this. Getting into Orbit KSP Tutorial Series for Beginners. And we're going to post a link to it on our website, and we're also going to tweet out the link. But it's a very good video. If you enjoy Modder's Minute, you will certainly enjoy DK's tutorial YouTube videos. Talking about mods, looks like there's been a change, and Nos is going to tell us about it.
Okay, so there were a few rules that were changed for posting mods on the Kerbal Space Program forums, and the mods went into effect on August 21st. The big changes would be you can't have donate buttons, and another big change was if any data is going to be sent to a third party from the mod, it needs to be opt-in or opt-out.
You're on the Something Awful forums, and you've got some comments. Can you share some of those?
Spooky Donut writes, I've been watching carefully.
I hit the mic.
Hey, it's the mic hit. Spooky Donuts write, I've been watching carefully. Ferrum immediately included mod statistics in all of his mods and hasn't done anything to change that since the past month. ScanStats still hasn't been updated. Cathane is still only in 0.24. The mod stats thread is locked and Majir is too busy to make it strictly opt-in. Despite the plethora of pull requests on GitHub, everything above is breaking the rules as of current. Now, as far as Kerbal Attachment System goes, there hasn't been any record of mod statistics being in there, so it hasn't been updated very much, but it also is not against the current rules.
Didn't you tell me that there's a alternative Kerbal Attachment System or a similar mod that's what did you say is out there or being worked on?
It's being worked on.
Okay.
Rover Dude is he's also working on, he made Carbonite, which is the kind of the new Cathane in the whole Kerbal world. Now he's working on something to like Kerbal Attachment System with kind of his own spin on it, but has a lot of the same features, like the ability to attach things and clamping and securing objects.
Well, as you said, there has been a change to the rules for modders. And going back to the interview we did with Max Maps, that's something that we asked him about.
Our mod rules were kind of outdated and problems that could have come up weren't considered, which isn't fantastic, but which means that eventually we had to deal with them. For example, we have no problem whatsoever with any of our players voluntarily giving stats or data from their computer to any mod or server that they desire. Like, we are totally fine with that.
Okay.
But what we are, what we're not totally cool with is the fact that people weren't really disclosing what was being gathered as easily for someone who doesn't have that much technical expertise to follow up, and that there was no real easy way to opt out of this kind of thing. So we had to build new rules around it. Like, okay, yeah, if anyone wants to give you their info, totally fine, but you have to make it easy for them to say no to your data gathering, and you have to disclose everything that you're collecting.
Okay, so any mods that did do that and have not changed to fit the new rules, what's going to happen to those mods?
We are not going to go after them or anything like that. We're not going to, chase them out of communities or whatever. But they are no longer allowed to be posted on our forums. People who have been given infractions, the posts removed and all that. But so far, pretty much everyone has been really, really reasonable about it. They have modified their stuff to comply to our rules, or they have moved them to offsite communities, in which case we are,
not responsible for it.
Yeah, pretty much. Which was generally our issue. Like, we don't mind, on the general sense, there is no downside to people gathering data like that if we assume that everyone's going to be nice about it. But the last thing we want is someone saying, hey guys, my computer got hacked or my credit card information got compromised or something because something I downloaded off your forums. Can you do something about it?
Okay, so any new mods that were made that had any infractions, would they also be dealt with like any of the existing ones?
Yes, they would be.
What about mods that accept donations? You guys made some changes there, correct?
We are totally fine with people asking for donations. However, we don't like the donate buttons in games. It kind of models the experience, and it might lead someone who, again, isn't too savvy to think that they're donating money to Squad when they aren't. We believe the work of modders is huge, and it definitely needs to be remunerated. But we prefer that stays outside of the game environment.
Which that makes sense, because it's like whenever you go to download something, and there's like 3 or 4 ads all around it that also look like download buttons.
Yeah, I was going to say, when he started talking about the changes in the mod rules, it's like it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and whenever a company's starting off, I mean, this is the first game they're making,
right,
and you have something that's this popular and getting this modded, like things start to pop up, and you have to change your modding rules because. Anything like that goes through growing pains. Like Minecraft had to do that. They had to change their rules and stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the crew report now. And this is obviously letters that we get from you. And we're going to start with another letter from Peekaboo, who we heard from last week. And he says, Dear Biff and Nos, in your last show, Keen Roberts asked for a more efficient trajectory for launching from Kerbin. We got quite a few letters on this one.
Apparently we weren't doing that right.
Yeah. Well, and Max Maps said that. He said that when they listened to the podcast, he says
there's like an outcry.
Yeah, he says that they have the occasional, he called it the face palm.
Yeah.
When we talk about what some of the things we do, because we're honest when we make mistakes, no matter how big of a goober it makes us look like, we mention it because we're learning just like you're learning, and the idea is that we're making mistakes. Hopefully you'll learn from the mistakes, and also it helps because if we say that we're doing something and it's not the best way to do it, folks will write in, and then of course we can share that. And Peekaboo gave us, he shared some information with us as well. And he said, first of all, as far as doing a more efficient launch, because what we were doing was we were coming straight off the ground until the nav ball switched to orbit, and then we pitched over to 90 degrees and kept going. Big waste of fuel. He says that what you need to do, first of all, get the Kerbal Engineer Redux redo mod, because there's some very important information that you need to have to do an efficient launch. He says the 2 most important figures for rocket building are the thrust to weight ratio, TWR, and the amount of available delta V. And the Kerbal Engineer mod makes all these calculations for you. It's detailed by stage and in various conditions, and it's absolutely essential. Okay, a optimum launch. Build your rocket so that the stages that take you out of the atmosphere will give it a thrust-to-weight ratio higher than 1 for each of them. Okay? When you launch, keep going straight up until you pass 10,000 meters. The reason for that, flying vertically to 10,000 meters is intended to get you out of the thicker part of the atmosphere. Above 10,000 meters, the air becomes much thinner, allowing you to push the engines to full, gaining speed without losing too much fuel to drag. Okay? During this stage, and this is as you're ascending to 10,000 meters, you should keep your speed below 200 meters per second. Throttle the engine back if needed. If you keep Kerbal Engineering running the display as you're ascending, you can actually watch your thrust to weight ratio and adjust your throttle accordingly. But keep your speed below 200 meters per second, because otherwise all you're doing is burning fuel. It says it conserves fuel up to 10,000 meters. Kerbin's atmosphere is very thick, and pushing against it at more than 200 meters per second substantially increases the fuel consumption with very little additional speed gain. Okay, when you pass 10,000 meters, tilt your rocket to the right, which in the game is east. You're going towards the 90-degree axis. Tilt to a 45-degree angle, which is basically halfway between the center point of your nav ball and the 90 degrees, okay? Tilt to the 45-degree angle and then immediately throttle up to 100%. So let's say you're running at less than half throttle to keep yourself under 200 meters per second. Once you pitch over to 45 degrees, throttle up to 100%. What you want to do is you want to start paying attention to your apoapsis, okay, the highest point, and wait until it passes 70,000 meters. And you can do this either by having the display screen of Kerbal Engineer open, because it'll show you your apoapsis as it's forming, or you can simply go to the map screen with the M key. When it reaches about 70,000 meters, cut your engines, and then just coast until you get close to the top of it, okay? Once you get there, burn until your periapsis gets to where you want it, and ta-da, you're done. That's you have an orbit. He says this template should let you get a stable circular orbit at about 100,000 meters at the cost of about 4,700 to 5,000 meters per second of delta V. And again, having the Kerbal Engineer helps you calculate both the thrust to weight ratio and the delta V very easily. So he's helped us, and he wants your help as well. He has a question. He says he doesn't really understand how to perform an interplanetary maneuver. To the listeners, could you please explain how to perform an interplanetary transfer maneuver? The simpler, the better. Please write to us. Give us your suggestions. What's the best way to get from planet to planet?
Yeah, obviously, we're not the best authority on something.
And you'll be helping Peekaboo out. Peekaboo, by the way, you know how we've been doing multiple sign-offs?
Yeah.
We have more to add to the pile.
How many?
2, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
Well, see, what I just read to you was kind of 2 letters put together. So I have 2 totally different sign-offs. The sign-off on the first letter was: load up the pad, strap in the Kerbals, ignite the rockets, and may the odds be ever in your favor. The second sign-off, which comes from the second letter, this one's shorter: don't forget to top off your tanks and stock up on snacks. Again, that's Peekaboo.
Yeah.
Thanks for the help, and we'll see if we can't maybe get some help for you too. What's our next letter?
Okay, speaking of advice from Cody C. Greetings, gentlemen. I have discovered your podcast about 2 weeks ago, and I loved listening to all of your previous episodes. Great job. Thanks, Cody. I wanted to take some time to offer a little advice to some of your listeners that may be considering a career in aerospace with NASA or any other aerospace company or agency. As a current NASA engineer, there are a few things to keep in mind when considering a major for a future career in the space program.
This is so cool.
Yeah. 1.
Sorry.
For those looking for a career in rocket design, which consists of dozens of different engineering disciplines like mechanical, fluid, structural, electrical, and so on, I would recommend choosing a major in engineering. that would be a choice you'd make over astrophysics. For those looking to join the space program in the pursuit of science, a degree in astrophysics, engineering physics, planetary science, etc. will do just fine. 3. Take location into account. For listeners interested in NASA, take some time and learn about each of the NASA centers and what their primary mission at that center is. NASA's Kennedy Space Center is a vehicle integration and launch facility. They put parts together, provide the vehicle with the commodities and services it requires, and then launch it. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, on the other hand, they design, control, and maintain the science-gathering equipment, rovers, telescopes, and satellites operated by NASA. Lastly, just keep in mind that you don't have to work for NASA to work for NASA. That may sound odd, but the agency operates in large part by contractor companies that work both for and alongside the civil servants. It is often much easier to start a career in space by finding entry-level employment with a contracting company. However, if you are interested in a civil servant position fresh out of school, NASA internships and co-ops are the way to go. I hope this helps some of your listeners on their path to achieving their dreams of a career in space. Keep up the good work, gents, and fly safe.
There we go. We have another sign-off. I said this last week. I'm going to repeat it because it needs to be repeated. It is so cool that this game is driving people into the aerospace engineering or the aerospace industry.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And here a NASA guy writes in and says, if you're considering, here's some tips that you need to have.
Yeah, and like tips like that are great because like I want to work for NASA.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what part of NASA? Oh,
I want to
NASA.
stock the vending machines.
Yeah. So it's like giving them some direction on like what part of NASA. Okay, you like this part, or you're more inclined for this part.
You have to forgive me. I'm completely geeking out about this.
Yeah.
The fact that we've got people writing in saying that they want to go into the industry, and then somebody in the industry actually writes to us. I mean, I'm just going, oh man. I mean, this is like nerd heaven. So, okay. Well, next letter. This is from regular contributor John Martin. And you remember I made the comment that we got quite a few letters about the best launch profile.
Yeah.
John also said that he also talked about it, and so that we don't repeat ourselves, because he said a lot of what Peekaboo said. I'm going to go ahead and skip over that. But what he did write in and say was, he said, but I did want to acknowledge that he wrote that in and thank him for that, because it's very helpful. And by the way, I have tried these suggestions. Yes, very helpful. You get into orbit with a lot less fuel, and it's a lot more efficient.
Yeah, I think I've realized that the rockets I've been building have been best for just launching straight up. Because whenever I've turned and go to the 45 and stuff, I've realized mine are kind of hard to control. Like I can keep them up and center, but like whenever it came time to turn them, it started getting a little wacky. So I was like, okay, I think I need to work on this. Because I didn't put wings on or anything like that. It was just like go. So
well, I've done that, where especially where you get to that point where it's time to turn, and then for some reason it's like the minute you start to turn, the whole thing just explodes.
Yeah.
Well, there's obviously a glitch there somewhere. But anyway, back to the letter from John Martin. He says, first of all, thanks to Shay for starting the challenge. I have been away from the game for a couple of weeks, and the challenge brought me back to start a new sandbox game. And the first challenge that we got from Shay, remember, was how many
like
planets can you go to and land on and return to Kerbin, and you have to land at or near the Space Center. John Martin did that challenge, and this is his progress. Year 1, day 1, into a Kerbin orbit we go. Year 1, day 2, lander makes rendezvous ready for the moon. Year 1, days 3 through 5, Mun orbit and landing. Bob reports the lander is largely self-righting if you retract 2 legs and extend them again. He's a bit quiet on why he felt the need to test this feature. I love these mission descriptions. They're always so clever. Year 1, days 6 through 32. Bob and Harbo Kerman play EVA tennis, waiting for a Minmus transfer window. That must be difficult in zero gravity.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, EVA tennis. The loser has to chase the ball.
Yeah.
Year 1, days 33 to 35. Minmus orbit and landing. Year 1, days 36 through 155. Wow. Back to Kerbin to get a new tank and wait for a Duna transfer window. Oh, man, he's going for Duna. On the way to Duna, I encounter a bug where you can't create a maneuver node on a pre-encounter orbit if the post-encounter track is too close. This meant I could not fix my inclination during the transfer and arrived at Duna with an inclined orbit. And guess what? Now I no longer have enough fuel to land and get back to Kerbin. For the challenge, I made it to 2 bodies, or none, since Bob and Harbo were orbiting Duna. With more time, I'm sure I could have sent some fuel, but the week is up. Remember, part of the challenge is you have 1 week to do all this.
Yeah.
John finishes by saying, one possible challenge. Now that funds are part of the game, how much do you need to spend to get the stock space station core into an orbit of 100,000 kilometers, 45-degree, inclined circular orbit of Kerbin? No quick saves. Add up the cost of all the attempts. And go broke.
Yeah, I mean, I've already had one profile where I saw how broke I could get. So.
Yeah. And it was just like real life.
Yeah.
But anyway, that letter came to us from John Martin. And we have one more, correct?
Yes, this comes from the KSP subreddit from Jackie Moon.
Jackie boy.
The real solar system mod is extremely difficult and makes you feel like a noob again, but it's so much more rewarding when you finally get it right. For Duna / Mars, there's Deimos and Phobos. Both are very small and are captured asteroids. They are similar to Gilly in gravity and size. Minimus becomes Uranus with atmosphere and retexturing. Felix the Master 1 says, I can barely get on the Mun. I'm good, thanks. The Venetian Mask says,
I'm good, thanks.
It took me a lot of retries just to get to a second comm satellite in Earth orbit. It's going to be fun trying to get anything to Mars. Moby the Narwhal says, you will actually find yourself using real-world ship design quite often. And Randoom says, I have tried all of this, but it ruined the game for me. It was harder, yes, but the balance was off. There was always some aspect I just couldn't get right, whether it was the DRE realism, getting engine nodes to line up, or similar. I've spent more time screwing around with mod settings and being frustrated by not being able to build properly than playing the game. Squad got it right the first time. I would be open to an all-inclusive pack that overhauled this with playable settings, but if I had an hour free, I want to play the game, not get annoyed because the mods made gameplay worse. RO2 Wingnuts says, KSP has a charm for being Kerbalized. The Space Sim Orbiter is a great super technical realism-oriented program with plenty of third-party add-ons. I would suggest everyone try this at least once, but KSP just has a special forgiving quality to it.
We were kind of curious what the final quality of Kerbal was going to be, and we're going back to the interview now with Max Maps. And we asked him, because at this stage, we are on update 0.24. They're working on 0.25. And we asked him, is there an end game in sight? Do they have an idea of what the final version of Kerbal is supposed to look like? Or is that a moving target? Is that something that changes day by day or update by update?
There's a design document, obviously, that tells what the game should have. And then there's a roadmap to get to scope completion. But we did our best to leave a good chunk of wiggle room in each update. So, like, let's say every update we release has somewhere in the lines of 6-7 features that we add in, or tweaks, or major changes, that kind of stuff. The roadmap usually has 2 or 3. So we know we're going to have to implement this, and this, because these are part of the design document, and this is what we see the finished version of Kerbal Space Program to be like. And then we leave ourselves room for things that have come up as we develop, or things that the fan base has shown us that the game really needs. For example, your first modding minute last week, you guys discussed how enhanced navvault just enhances the experience of the game, right? Like, it doesn't really change anything, but it gives you a better. It just improves accessibility, like, deeply. Yeah. So we went. So one of our tasks this time around was implement our version of improved navvault, and it's already in the code, which makes me very happy.
Wow. Yeah, I after after the Modder's Minute, I immediately went and installed it, and I was like, wow, why haven't I been doing this before?
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty much what we're like, yeah, this is a really cool idea and helps accessibility at all. Let's have it in. Crew transferring is another thing. A lot of people don't like having to, when they want to move a Kerbal from a pod to another, when two vessels are connected, and they find the idea of having to EVA from one to the other very silly. So we're adding a little menu that lets you move Kerbals between available pods.
One tweak I would love to see is when you've got two ships connected and you do a fuel transfer. The way it is now, you have to transfer each tank to
individually.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to do like a main fuel transfer, like where it just transfers all the fuel.
Yeah, that's absolutely and 100% in the plan. We're not happy with fuel transfer right now. It's kind of in a placeholder status, so don't worry about that. We're definitely going to get into it and find a way to better transfer fuel. Because, for example, myself, I'm trying to transfer fuel from two tanks to another, or from one tank to two others symmetrically, is pretty much hell.
Okay, I have to say, I feel very bad for Max Maps, because he, for a couple of hours, was held captive by two gamers telling him everything they wanted in the game. Although he said that he spends quite a bit of his day dealing with that.
Like
so
dealing with all those requests.
Nothing new, but I mean, the whole time it was like, and we want this in the game, and we want this in the game.
Make a planet out of cookies.
Yeah. And make the moon's chocolate chips. Well, we obviously we have a lot of content from the Max Maps interview. And so we're trying to keep everything else kind of short. So for mission briefing, we have one story today, and this comes to us.
It's one you're excited about.
I'm excited, even more than the Planet of Cookies. This comes from the Civilization Wiki. And I've said in previous podcasts that I am a fan of the Civilization games. And there's a new one coming out. It's called Sid Meier's Civilization Beyond Earth. And it's going to be released October 24th, and it is available now for pre-purchase on Steam, $49.99. So if you have $50 laying around, that would be money well spent. The story of the game:
it takes place approximately 200 to 300 years from the present, when humans must leave Earth as a result of an event called the Great Mistake.
The Great Mistake.
It's a chapter 1.
I wonder what that is.
Chapter 1. Whoops.
Oops.
In the game, humanity travels through space to start a new life on extraterrestrial planets by establishing colonies there.
Yeah, it's the same basic core Civilization game, but it's on different planets.
Yeah, the mechanisms are still the same.
And I've looked at screenshots, and it's like, you got like sea monsters in the water, and
nice.
You have like all this high tech.
Oh, hey, somebody made sea monsters after all.
That's right. That's right. Just as long as they don't do sea monkeys.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have a lot of future tech, and I've heard it's a distant cousin to the old Sid Meier's game Alpha Centauri.
Yeah.
There's echoes. It's not a remake or a redo, but it shares some kinship, some DNA.
So, like, maybe the native barbarian tribes you fight in Civilization, maybe they'll be like native alien.
That's right.
Indigenous aliens and stuff.
Yeah, see, because you chased them off. That was the big mistake. You chased them off Earth.
Yeah.
They went to another planet, and then when you show up, they whoop on you.
They're on our turf now.
Yeah. Yeah, the big mistake was, you're supposed to keep your friends close and your enemies closer, and they did neither. So, again, the release date for Civilization Beyond Earth, October 24th. Pre-purchase now on Steam, $49.99. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Like I said, we're trying to keep this, these segments short. So we're going to go from mission briefing right into the rechristened, but I kind of digress, but not really, because it's still Kerbin. And this is called The Story of Max Maps. Max Maps, as you heard in the interview that we did with him, he's talked quite a bit about, update 0.25. He's talked about the new mod rules. He's talked about the final version of the game. But we were also kind of curious about Squad, and we were curious about him as well. We asked him to tell us kind of his life story, his background and whatever. And this is what he told us.
I am a biochemical research dropout who went into business.
Hey, you're amongst friends if you're a dropout.
Yeah, no, I just it wasn't working. I went through there's this really big university called UNAM down here, and I survived 2 years there in biochemical research, which is supposed to be impossible. And then my brother actually got into a rival school for engineering, and he started coming back from classes completely happy and thrilled to be learning. And I was like, oh, I thought you were just supposed to dread everything in school forever. So I figured maybe I mispicked my career. So I went into business because that's kind of what everyone had told me I should have done my whole life, and turns out they're right. At some point you learn that you can in fact get paid to talk for a living, and I was like, I want to do this thing.
Yeah.
Were you with Squad before they started doing Kerbal, when they were still a PR?
Oh, no. I actually, I started doing, once I graduated, I got a job for the pharmaceutical industry representing people as their PR guy, which was great, kind of soul-consuming entirely. So I eventually quit. I did some consulting, which was fun, but also infuriating because I hate it when I tell someone what's wrong and then decide to completely ignore me, even if they pay me for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna find something. There's gonna be something fun I can do around here. And I have this friend over at the Something Awful forums called Weir. She's like a super nice gal, and she got me into KSP because I've been a gamer since I've had memory. Like I got an NES before I could like really walk properly, so that's it just sort of stuck forever.
Yeah.
What kind of games?
I play everything. I obviously back then it was just platformers and everything, but nowadays I kind of specialize in RPGs. I like MMOs. I like challenging games like Monster Hunter and Dark Souls, and that's kind of what got me into KSP, just playing it. Like I compared my first moon landing a lot to killing a Black Knight in Dark Souls. It's just like incredibly hard, but every time something goes wrong, it's 100% your fault.
Yeah.
Like I can never tell, oh, this is terrible, this is bad design. No, it's like, oh yeah, that was on me. I'm a dumbass. Let's go again and again and again and again. Before
Kerbal Space Program, did you play a lot of simulation games?
Not particularly. No, I've never been that much into the sim genre. I like SimCity, I suppose. Like that's certainly fun for me and that kind of stuff. But Flight Simulator and stuff like that, I just never really touched. I tried Flight Simulator once at a friend's house, and it went so awfully bad, and it was so incomprehensible to me that I just went, no thanks. My friend tells me, you should try this game, and I try it, and I love it, and I play like a good 40-50 hours in it, and I'm like, yeah, I think that's really great and all, but I'm gonna play something else because I kind of get bored of games eventually. But I just kind of kept coming back every week.
And of course, from that humble beginning,
Max Maps went to Squad.
You never, ever, ever consider that something you're playing as a gamer is something that was made down here. So I just assumed, well, obviously Squad is gonna be like in California or Vancouver or someplace like that, like every other game studio ever. So my friend from Something Awful tells me, hey, you know what? Squad's actually looking for a PR guy, and I'm like, that's really good. I'm not really looking to relocate to California right now. I was like, you don't actually know they're in Mexico? And I'm like, what?
Right.
At that point, after I got done scraping my brains from the ceiling, because boom, I was like, you know what? I should probably throw in my resume. And that was a year and a half ago, give or take, May of the last year, and I had an interview. It went well, in my opinion. I overdressed a lot because I assumed it was going to be like every student type job I've been into. And then I walk in and it's Harvester and Adrian in like Metallica shirts and jeans, just talking game design and explosions and stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah. Next time, lose the suit. Maybe not a tie. So I had my follow-up interview and they offered me the position, and I was like, that's totally fine. When can you start? And I was like, I could totally start right now. And I did.
Were you a little starstruck?
Yes, absolutely. Talking to Harvester, like, real life was weird because I had read a couple blog posts, I had seen how the guys work, but actually sitting down and talking to him and getting to know how his mind works is just fantastic. He just has so many ideas, and he, you can tell he's really, really smart, and he has a very unique take on gameplay and game design. So once the starstruckness just kind of wore off, we spent probably my first 4 hours of work talking about the future of KSP and game development and what could go in and what he felt was necessary and all that. So yeah, I knew I had found home. This is by far the most enjoyable job I have ever had in my life, and I've been working for over 9 years now.
I read an article about a year ago that said that the genesis of the game was he walked into work one day and said, "Hey, I have an idea for a game. I quit." And they said, no, we'll do it. Is that a true story?
That is 100% true, but I would put the genesis even further back. Harvesters from Brazil. Because, I guess we don't do anything conventional at Squad. When he was little, he's always had this sort of tinkerer engineer mentality to him, even though he wouldn't go fully into engineering. So he would take these fireworks, illegal fireworks to be precise, and he would cut them open and modify them to remove the explosive payload and just leave them as little tiny rockets that go up, and that's it. And he would strap tiny men made out of tinfoil and wire that he called Kerbals onto these explosive rockets, and he would run tests on them, see how far he could get them.
Yeah. So you recently had a promotion, didn't you?
Yes, I did actually, and that's kind of tied into the whole talking to Harvester a lot about game design and all that. I have a hard time just sitting at my desk and doing my job when it comes to PR. I usually just get all my emails out of the way, and then, I don't know, maybe I'm not a huge Facebook fan or something, but the procrastination thing has never really worked out for me, so I just get up and start walking around the office and being like, "Hey, what are you working on? Hey, have you considered this?" And time again, because I spend way too much time playing video games, I would come up with little things that the team like, "Hey, have we tried this?" Or, "Hey, maybe you're designing this way, and I see how it works, but have you considered this and this?" And I did this for over a year, and at some point, I guess someone picked up that that's kind of what a producer is supposed to do.
Interesting. Well, I would dispute that there's such a thing as too much time playing video games.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you there.
So what kind of new responsibilities have you taken on with the job?
Well, I have to schedule a lot. I have to make sure that the deadlines are met and all that. But overall, I just have to make sure that everyone's working at peak efficiency at all times. And that means doing simple things like making sure that everyone kind of knows what everyone else is working on, and seeing if they can share work, seeing if the 3D artists are working on, right now they're working on like somewhere in the lines of, I think, 50 new models, and they're all high quality and pretty big. So sharing things like textures or chopping little bits of a building and putting them somewhere else really, really help. That kind of stuff. But overall, it's just kind of making sure everything goes great. Everyone's doing what they need to be doing. The progression's going on as it should, and no time's being wasted, or no one's doing tasks that could be done more efficiently by other people. And I get a little input in game design, not a whole lot, but I had a voice before, like when I was just the PR guy, but now I have like a more resounding voice. But in the end, obviously, the buck stops with Harvester. If he doesn't like something and he has a good explanation for it, it doesn't get done.
Well, there you have it. The buck stops with Harvester. The guy who created the game has final say on it.
Which is good, because a lot of times a designer, like once they get the ball rolling, it can kind of go out of reach of them.
Yeah.
But it's really awesome that, Max Maps and all the other people, like they're all contributing to it, and they come up with the ideas, and he considers all of them, and I think they have a really good rapport with each other just by the way he talks about working there.
Yeah, I was surprised. He said that there's 9 people in Mexico City, and then about 5 people elsewhere.
Yeah, well,
so they're
very,
still
very elsewhere.
Yeah, so they're still a relatively small shop, but that wraps up the interview that we did. Max Maps, also known as Miguel Pina with Squad, was kind enough to sit down on a Saturday afternoon and answer some questions. And just want to say it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got some good information, and we certainly thank him for doing that. Now, we want to, before we wrap things up, we have another challenge from Shay to pass along. And what is the challenge?
Kerbin's geosynchronous orbit is 2,868.75 kilometers. My challenge for the listeners is to have a space station at or near geosynchronous orbit with the following attachments. Crew habitation module, able to hold up to 20 Kerbals at a time.
20?
20. Science bay, communications tower, power generation, refueling station, and something to set your station apart from the others. For example, a ring or something aesthetic like colorful lights, something to make it different.
Mine's going to have a bowling alley.
Yeah.
A 0G bowling alley.
Rules. Each piece must be sent in separate launches. Each power generation must be able to power the entire station without direct sunlight. You may only build it in either campaign modes. No sandboxes allowed. So either contract mode or science mode.
Yeah.
Breathe deep, fly high. Now, we had somebody that was trying for the last Shay Challenge. MittenPo85 through Twitter said, flying and landing on Kerbin is like 10 times more difficult than getting to and landing on the Mun. 8 Kerbals without reverting?
Yes, the infamous bleep. Yeah, and it's true. It is more difficult. When I try and hit the when I try and land at the Space Center.
I try to get anywhere. Yeah, because like you see where your orbit ends.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take into account like whenever the parachute hits and all those things. So
and
it's like,
atmosphere and all kinds of other
So
fun
the
stuff.
moment all those hit, you end up like, oh wait, I thought I was supposed to be way closer to this thing.
So your Shay challenge for this week is to build a space station, a big honkin' space station apparently.
Yeah.
In geosynchronous orbit around Kerbin. And I've built stations similar to what he's talking about. If you are not good at orbiting and rendezvous when you start, you will be when you end.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be doing a lot of it, and you'll be working your way down. Well, we as always, we want to toss out some thanks. First of all, top of our list, Miguel Pena, aka Max Maps with Squad. Thank you again. It was such an awesome interview. And we really enjoyed it. We really had a lot of fun with it.
We want to give a thank you to our listeners, including our regular contributors.
And that includes DK from the Twitch TV channel Declarations and his Modders Minute. As we said, he does have a YouTube video that he's put up, Getting into Orbit tutorial for beginners. We are going to have a link for it on our website and also Twitter. You definitely want to check it out because it is a lot of fun.
We want to thank the Reddit moderators of Kerbal Space Program and KSP Testing. And all the music you've heard is from Professor Soap. You can find him at facebook.com/Professor Soap.
Don't forget, you can always get in contact with us. Our email address is kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. On Twitter, it's @Kerbalcast. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, or you can download directly. It's kerbalpodcast.libsyn.com. And until next time, I'm your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot, Biff Aldrin, and our CMP, Command Module Pilot,
Nostromo.
And as we say goodbye, remember, may you always have a star to steer by and enough fuel to get you home. Until next time,
happy Kerbaling! Day 5 on Cookie Planet.
Day 5 on Cookie Planet.
We've realized this is a really bad idea. We did not bring any milk supply. This cookie is very dry and crumbly. We think as we go closer to the molten chocolate core that we may be able to get some nutrients. Our blood sugar levels are getting ridiculous. We should have gone to some more balanced diet of the planet.
Say Nostromo again.
Nostromo.
May you always have a star.
Nostromo.
And as we
Nostromo. Nostromo.
And as we say goodbye, remember, always. Oh, damn it. May you always have. Okay, do it again.
Nostromo.
Sandwich time. Din, 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 din. Din, din.
Sandwich time.
My pants don't fit me. They fall down around my ankles in a ball. No, never mind. Wiki. It sounds like I'm rapping, doesn't it?
For those looking to join the space program in pursuit of a science, a degree in astrophysics. For those looking to join. Why do you want me to talk? You're talking.
No, let's say
that's rude. That's really rude.
It's rude, man.